Hello everyone, it's time to pause for poetry. And today I'm going to be reading some poems from a book that I have from home called A Child's Treasury of Poems. And there's a lot of really good ones in here. I'm going to start out with one of my favorites, and it's written by Eugene Field, and it comes from A Little Book of Western Verse in 1889. So that was quite some time ago. But the very first time I ever heard this was on a Dennis the Menace movie that came out quite several years ago. And Dennis the Menace happened to be spending the night with the Wilsons, their next door neighbors. And Mrs. Wilson, after Dennis the Menace took a bath, he wanted her to tell him a story. And this is the poem that she read to him. And that's where I fell in love with it. And of course, and then looked it up for myself. So it's called Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. Wynken, Blynken, and Nod one night sailed off in a wooden shoe, sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. Where are you going, and what do you wish? The old moon asked the three. We have come to fish for the herringfish that live in this beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we, said Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herringfish that lived in that beautiful sea. Now cast your nets wherever you wish, but ne'er afeard are we, so cried the stars to the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. All night long their nets they threw to the stars in the twinkling foam. Then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail it seemed, as if it could not be, and some folks thought 'twas a dream they'd dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. Wynken and Blynken are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head, and the wooden shoe that sails the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock on the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Wynken, Blynken, and Nod. And there's just a little picture of, looks like a fairy or a lady with little, surrounded by fairies. I'm not really sure exactly what that is. But it looks like a little fairy tale, almost like little, it looks like a lady surrounded by little fairies. Okay, gonna go back just a little bit. Some of these you will probably remember because I learned them as like nursery rhymes, but they come from this book of poems. Young and old, when all the world is young, lad, and all the trees are green, and every goose a swan, lad, and every lass a queen. Then hey for boot and horse, lad, and round the world away. Young blood must have its course, lad, and every dog his day. When all the world is old, lad, and all the trees are brown, when all the sport is stale, lad, and all the wheels run down, creep home and take your place there, the spent and maimed among. God grant you find one face there you loved when all was young. And that's by Charles Kingsley, and it came from the book The Water Babies in 1863. Okay. Sam the butcher man washed his face in a frying pan, combed his hair with a wagon wheel, and died with a toothache in his heel. And that's an anonymous author. But I remember hearing that when I was a kid. Here's another short but good one. Dr. Foster went to Gloucester in a shower of rain. He stepped in a puddle right up to his middle and never went there again. And that's probably one most of you have probably heard. This is called Winifred Waters by William Bridie Rands, and it's from Lilliput Lyrics in 1899. Winifred Waters sat and sighed under a weeping willow. When she went to bed she cried, wetting all her pillow. Kept on crying night and day, till her friends lost patience. What shall we do to stop her, pray? So said her relations. Send her to the sandy plains, in the zone called torrid. Send her where it never rains, where the heat is horrid. Mind that she has only flour for her daily feeding. Let her have a page an hour of the driest reading. Navigation, logarithm, all that kind of knowledge. Ancient pedigrees go with 'em from the Herald's College. When the poor girl has endured 6 months of this drying, Winifred will come back cured, let's hope, of crying. And there's a picture of a little girl sitting probably on a stool, like a timeout stool. She doesn't look very happy, does she? Okay. There was an old woman, and this is anonymous, written by an anonymous person. There was an old woman tossed up in a basket, 19 times as high as the moon. And I'm going to start all over. I'm so sorry. There was an old woman tossed up in a basket, 19 times as high as the moon. Where she was going, I couldn't but ask it, for in her hand she carried a broom. Old woman, old woman, old woman, quoth I, oh whither, oh whither, oh whither so high? To brush the cobwebs off the sky. Shall I go with thee? Aye, by and by. I remember hearing that about the woman that was brushing the cobwebs from the sky with her broom. This is called the Old Woman of Norwich. There was an old woman, and what do you think? She lived upon nothing but victuals and drink. Victuals and drink were the chief of her diet, yet this plaguey old woman could never be quiet. This one is just titled Cobbler, Cobbler. Cobbler, cobbler, mend my shoe. Get it done by 2:30. Stitch it up and stitch it down, then I'll give you half a crown. The lion and the unicorn were fighting for the crown. The lion beat the unicorn all around the town. Some gave him white bread and some gave him brown. Some gave them plum cake and sent them out of town. This is called Jemima. There was a little girl, and she had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. One day she went upstairs while her parents, unawares, in the kitchen down below were at their meals. And she stood up on her bed, on her little truckle bed, and she began hurraying with her heels. Her mother heard the noise and thought it was the boys a-playing at combat in the attic. But when she climbed the stair and saw Jemima there, she took her and did spank her most emphatic. And this was anonymous as well. Mary, Mary. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. And that's just a traditional nursery rhyme. The Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole the tarts and took them clean away. The King of Hearts called for the tarts and beat the knave full sore. The Knave of Hearts brought back the tarts and vowed he'd steal no more. The Jolly Miller. There was a jolly miller once, lived on the River Dee. He worked and sang from morn till night, no lark more blithe than he. And this the burden of his song forever used to be. I care for nobody, no not I, and nobody cares for me. That's kind of sad. The daughter of the farrier. The daughter of the farrier could find no one to marry her, because she said she would not wed a man who could not carry her. The foolish girl was wrong enough, and had to wait quite long enough, for as she sat she grew so fat that nobody was strong enough. Oh my goodness, that's one I have never heard. I'd be curious to know if any of you have ever heard it. The daughter of the farrier got so big nobody could carry her. Okay, all right. So sometime when you see me in the hallway or I'm out and about, let me know if you've ever heard that poem before. My pretty pink. My pretty little pink, I once did think that you and I would marry. But now I've lost all hopes of that, I can no longer tarry. I've got my knapsack on my back, my musket on my shoulder, to march away to Quebec town to be a gallant soldier. Where coffee grows on white oak tree and the rivers flow with brandy, where the boys are like a lump of gold and the girls as sweet as candy. Little man and maid. There was a little man, and he wooed a little maid. And he said, "Little maid, will you wed, wed, wed? I have little more to say than will you, yea or nay? For least said is soonest, men dead, 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 dead." The little maid replied, some say a little sighed, "But what shall we have to eat, eat, eat? Will the love that you are rich in make a fire in the kitchen, or the little god of loving turn the spit, spit, spit?" Oh, I've never heard that. And there's just a couple little pictures with these two poems. The one is the boy gallantly going off to be a soldier, and then the other one is the little man wooing the maid. Okay. Joshua Lane. "I know I have lost my train," said a man named Joshua Lane, "but I'll run on the rails with my coattails for sails, and maybe I'll catch it again. I had a little nut tree, nothing would it bear, but a silver nutmeg and a golden pear. The King of Spain's daughter, she came to visit me, and all for the sake of my little nut tree. I skipped over water, I danced over sea, and all the birds in the air couldn't catch me." And this one, "Sing a Song of Sixpence," was a song actually I heard when I was a little child, and I'm going to try to sing it. "Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Was not that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in her parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when along came a blackbird and snipped off her nose." Okay, I'm sure many of you remember those as well. Wintertime by Robert Louis Stevenson. "Late lies the wintry sun abed, a frosty, fiery, sleepy head. Blinks but an hour or two, and then a blood-red orange sets again. Before the stars have left the skies, at the morning in the dark I rise, and shivering in my nakedness by the cold candle, bathe and dress. Close by the jolly fire I sit, to warm my frozen bones a bit, or with a reindeer sled explore the colder countries round the door. When to go out, my nursie doth wrap me in my comforter and cap. The cold wind burns my face and blows its frosty pepper up my nose. Black are my steps on silver sod, thick blows my frosty breath abroad, and tree and house and hill and lake are frosted like a wedding cake." Windy nights. Whenever the moon and stars are set, whenever the wind is high, all night long in the dark and wet, a man goes riding by. Late in the night when the fires are out, why does he gallop and gallop about? Whenever the trees are crying aloud and ships are tossed at sea, by on the highway, low and loud, by at the gallop goes he. By at the gallop he goes, and then by he comes back at the gallop again. And that's by Robert Louis Stevenson as well. Now the Day is Over by Sabine Baring Gould. And this is from Hymns, Ancient and Modern, 1868. And I'm not going to sing it because I'm not sure I know the melody, but it is a hymn that I have heard before. Now the day is over. Now the day is over, night is drawing nigh, shadows of the evening steal across the sky. Now the darkness gathers, stars begin to peep, birds and beasts and flowers soon will be asleep. Jesu, give the weary calm and sweet repose, with the tenderest blessings may our eyelids close. Grant to little children visions bright of thee, guard the sailors tossing on the deep blue sea. Comfort every sufferer watching late in pain. Those who plan some evil from their sin restrain. Through the long night watches may thine angels spread their white wings above me, watching round my bed. When the morning wakens, then may I arise, pure and fresh and sinless in thy holy eyes. Glory to the Father, glory to the Son, and to thee, blessed Spirit, whilst all ages run. And I'll just read a few more. The Celestial Surgeon. If I have faltered more or less in my great task of happiness, if I have moved among my race and shown no shining morning face, if beams from happy human eyes have moved me not, if morning skies, books, and my food and summer rain knocked on my sullen heart in vain, Lord, thy most pointed pleasure take and stab my spirit broad awake. By Robert Louis Stevenson as well. Certainty by Emily Dickinson. I never saw a moor, I never saw the sea, yet I know how the heather looks and what a wave must be. I never spoke with God nor visited in heaven, yet certain I am of the spot, as if the chart were given. Where did you come from, baby dear? Where did you come from, baby dear? Out of the everywhere into here. Where did you get your eyes so blue? Out of the sky as I came through. Well, what makes the light in them sparkle and spin? Some of the starry spikes let in. Where did you get that little tear? I found it waiting when I got here. What makes your forehead so smooth and high? A soft hand stroked it as I went by. What makes your cheek like a warm white rose? I saw something better than anybody knows. Whence that three-cornered smile of bliss? 3 angels gave me at once a kiss. Where did you get this pearly ear? God spoke, and it came out to hear. Where did you get those arms and hands? Love made itself into hooks and bands. Feet, whence did you come, darling things? From the same box as the cherub's wings. How did they all just come to be you? God thought about me, and so I grew. But how did you come to us, you dear? God thought about you, and so I am here. And that's by George MacDonald from At the Back of the North Wind in 1871. I'll finish up with just one more titled The Snow. It sifts from leaden sieves, it powders all the wood. It fills with alabaster wool the wrinkles of the road. It makes an even face of mountain and of plain, unbroken forehead from the east unto the east again. It reaches to the fence, it wraps it rail by rail, till it's lost in fleeces, it flings a crystal veil. On stump and stack and stem, the summer's empty room, acres of seams where harvests were, recordless but for them. It ruffles wrists of post as ankles of a queen, then stills its artisans like ghosts, denying they have been. By Emily Dickinson. Okay, thank you for joining me and taking time to pause for poetry, and I will see you again next time.